Welcome to Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. My show is dedicated to helping you build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of the personalities. This show airs each week on Wednesdays live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In case you don't know me, my name is Karen Ward. I'm an advanced certified personality trainer and speaker. I'm a personality coach, and I'm the author of the book Coupled for Life Overcoming Personality Differences in Marriage. Get your copy. Now, we focus on this show on the four personality styles developed by Florence Littauer. She's the late Florence Littauer. She was world renowned, and she developed this personality trait theory that addresses four personality styles: two are extroverted personality styles and two are introverted personality styles. Now, the extroverted personality styles mean that you get your energy from other people. The introverted personality styles means that you get your energy from within. So let's talk about the two extroverts. First, you have the perfect the popular sanguine and the powerful choleric. Then the introverted personality styles are the perfect melancholy and the peaceful phlegmatic. To learn more about the personality styles, you can go to my website, Beyond2, BeyondTwollC.com. That is the website that you can get more information. You can also purchase a personality assessment if you really want to know your own personality style. So let's get started. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to explore the melancholy mind, insights into the melancholy personality. Now, the melancholy, as I said earlier, the perfect melancholy is an introvert. They get their energy from within. Now, I created a little slideshow so that we can get into a deep dive of this particular personality style. All right, let's get going. The perfect melancholy we call perfect because they strive for perfection. Let's go here. All right. Their basic desire is not to have control. I'm sorry, my little thing got put in the wrong place. But their basic desire for a melancholy is to have perfection. They strive for perfection in all that they do. And I thought I changed this slide, and I apologize. And they control people by their moods. They're very, very moody. The melancholy also have emotional needs. Their emotional needs are space. They need space. They need for you to not come into their personal space. They don't like it. You know, I say this, it's funny because during the pandemic, the melancholies were the personality that said, I'm glad that you all have to step 6 feet back from me, because they never want you in their personal space. So they need space. They need silence. They need for you not to talk to them all day, or, you know, to communicate, or to go to like large events. They need silence. They need to regroup with silence. They also need sensitivity. They need you to be sensitive to whatever they're going through, because the melancholy personality tends to go through some things because they tend to hold on to things. And they need support. They need to know that you have their back and that you're going to support them in whatever they're going through. All right, let's talk about some of the clues that you can look when you see a melancholy. When you see a melancholy personality, I think I'm going to have to, I really believe that something happened with my slides. I'm not really sure. But anyway, when you see a melancholy personality, they are very formal. They are introverted. They are neat. They are creative. They are a personality style that only speaks when necessary. They're very purpose driven. So they do stuff that makes a difference in the world, or makes a difference on their job or in their families. They don't just do things just to be doing things. Unlike the sanguine we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think it was last week, we talked about the sanguine. The sanguine personality will just do anything just for fun. A melancholy tends to have to have a reason for doing everything that they do. They don't believe in expelling energy when it's not necessary. Typically, they're soft spoken, um, and they're the kind of personality style that really thinks about what they're saying before they speak. Even good or bad, if they're saying something, they're thinking it through. They want to make sure they understand how what they're going to say is going to impact you. And the bad part is if they really want to impact you by saying something, they've thought it through. And they tend to be standoffish. They tend to not let people get too close to them. They tend to not make friends really quickly, and so they can come off as standoffish. All right, so let's talk about the perfect melancholy as a parent, at work, and as a friend. As a parent, the perfect melancholy is very compassionate. They are truly the mama bears and papa bears of the personalities. They are very protective of their children. Um, they, will do whatever they have to do to make sure their children and their family members are safe. But they're not just protected of their family, but of their family members, their friends. Like when I say they have your back, they really have your back, right? They also tend to stress education. Their personality style that believes that you should do the best you can do because you can afford, once you do that, you can afford the best opportunities for you and your family. You can leave a legacy for your family. So they really stress education. Typically, they are highly educated, even if they don't have a degree or degrees, because a lot of them have multiple degrees. Is typically if they don't have a degree, it's for some life reason that they don't have a degree. But if they don't have a degree, they will read a lot and they'll learn a lot and they study a lot and they like information, and they like sharing information. They like having the knowledge to share with you. So what's interesting, my dad was a perfect melancholy. And my father didn't graduate high school, but he was one of the most intelligent people I had ever met. He was a person that read all the time. Like we would find books everywhere. They would be under the bed, they would be in his car, they would be in the bathroom. They were just always, I can always remember books, and he always had his face buried either in a book or a newspaper. That's typically where you would find a melancholy. Melancholy as a parent has also high expectations of their children. They have high expectations of themselves, but of other people as well. At work, the melancholy personality is schedule oriented. So they need to know where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, when it's due. They need that information. They don't like to be blindsided. They need to know that what's happening is happening, and it requires them as a resource to address it. They are perfectionists on the job. Like I said before, as a parent, they have high expectations of themselves and others, of their children, but they also have high expectations of others. They're perfectionists, and sometimes that can get in the way because a melancholy can get into analysis paralysis. They analyze something so long that they get paralyzed and they can't release whatever it is they're doing. So they have to be really, really careful not to have analysis paralysis, or to really focus on being perfect. Because if you never deliver on a thing, then what difference does it make how perfect it was? Only you know that. And melancholies are the first people to see a problem. And what I mean by that in a job, and even in personal, if you are a melancholy and you read books, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you read books, typically mistakes in the books jump right out at you. Like you are not looking for them, but they're constantly jumping out at you. And so you are also that person at work, at home, everywhere else, is that you see a problem when maybe other people don't even see that one's coming. You are a very forward thinking personality, and you see the potential of something happening before it even happens. You also like charts and lists and graphs. You like data. You like information. Typically, a melancholy will have a list for everything they're going to do. They have, a grocery list, and they have a laundry list, and they have a to-do list, and or list with an S. They have a honeydew list. They have all kinds of lists. They like stuff in a graphic format. They like spreadsheets and things of that nature. As a friend, they make friends cautiously. Everybody can't be in a melancholy circle, right? A melancholy needs to trust you and to know that you're a confidant. So they're very cautious about what they do. I mean, what friends they make. So, and typically they have a small group of friends. They don't have a lot of friends like the same one has a billion friends. They have a small group of friends, and they're loyal and they're trusted friends. And they don't usually let a lot of people in that circle. It takes a lot for them to do that. They also like to avoid causing any attention to themselves. They can easily stay in the background, and they don't really draw attention. Unlike the sanguine we talked about last week, we want to be the center of attention. We're loud, we're boisterous, and we want you to know that we're around. The melancholy is not that person. They really like being in the background. Then they also have a deep concern and compassion for other people. Melancholies care about what's happening in the world at large. They don't just care about, they care about their family, they care about their close friends, but they also care about their community. They care about the world, they care about what's happening, and, at large, so not just specific to their own situation. And they tend to seek ideal mates and friends, right? A melancholy personality is striving for perfection in every area of their lives. So, seeking an ideal mate is another way they strive for perfection. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the strengths and weaknesses of the melancholy. On the left are your strengths, on the right are your weaknesses. The melancholy, as I said before, is very thoughtful. The melancholy never forgets birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, things of that nature. If somebody has a death, they won't forget to get a card for them. They're really thoughtful and considerate. Melancholies are also very cautious, which is a good thing, and it can also fall on the bad thing. They're cautious, so they're always looking to see how they can mitigate any problems or difficulties. However, on the weakness side, I'm gonna toss it on that side real quick. They can be too cautious. Like they can be judgmental in a way that they don't even recognize that somebody is genuine. Melancholies are very organized. Typically, if you go to, I have all of my friends, I think I mentioned this before, all of my friends, my closest friends are melancholy personality styles. And when you go to their houses, they look like showpieces. It's like you walk in, everything is in its place. Everything has a place, everything is in its place. You walk in, you take your shoes off at the door. You know that everything's so neat. You're kind of afraid to sit in the house. You're a little afraid to do things because you know things have an order and a structure, and it's very organized. Even when I go in my friends' closets or cabinets, everything is organized and makes sense. And some of them have them in alphabetical order. And melancholies are very independent. They're independent and independent thinkers. So they think for themselves, they make their own decisions based on a set of circumstances that they'll think about or consider. And they're independent, like they can do whatever they want to do by themselves. They don't really need people around. They like it, but they don't have to have people around. All right, so let's talk a few minutes about the weaknesses. The melancholy personality can be obsessive. If they're in a relationship, they can be very obsessive with the person they're in a relationship with. They can be obsessive about dieting. They can be obsessive about working out. They can be obsessive with their friends. I remember many, many years ago, I had a birthday party and I invited my two groups of friends. I had two groups of friends that normally didn't intermingle. But because my friends wanted to take me out, I was like, well, can everybody go? And so everybody went. I learned a lesson back then. But um, one of my friends was really obsessed with me paying attention to her versus the rest of the crew. And another friend pointed that out to me. And so I know that there's obsession that can happen with the melancholy if they're not careful. They also, like as I said before, they can be too cautious. It's analysis paralysis. You just take forever to make a decision, and then the opportunity will pass you by, and you will miss out on some things. So, melancholy is good to be cautious, but it's not good to be too cautious. Um, One of the things I like to tell people is any strength taken to the extreme is a weakness. So, as we said, that being cautious is a strength, but being too cautious is taking that strength to an extreme and making it a weakness. Okay, they are prone to depression, and one of the things about a melancholy is, as you can see further down, I mean, next on the next bullet, they're moody. Um, their personality can shift in a blink. It can shift in a blink because a melancholy gets their feelings hurt really quickly. They take offense really easily to things that they think people are saying, and we call those real or imagined offenses because some of them are real. Sometimes people do things that are offensive and are hurtful, and sometimes they think that you're doing something that is hurtful and offensive. Um, I can tell you, being an extroverted, both of the extroverted personality styles, the popular sanguine and the powerful choleric, that I have a strong personality. And I, if not careful, if not thinking about what I'm doing or what I'm saying to people, I tend to hurt people's feelings. And I don't mean to do that. It is, I always say, charge it to my mind and not to my heart because it is not intentional. And I would prefer to people to tell me that I hurt their feelings, so I can apologize because I never intend to do that. Anyway, but their melancholies tend to get their feelings hurt very easily. And once their feelings are hurt, they shift their moods. So they can go from happy to sad to angry to whatever, in the blink of an eye. The melancholy can be difficult to please. They, because they have high expectations, because they are a perfectionist. No matter what you do, you may not ever please a melancholy. So that is something that you have to know about a melancholy personality, is because they are difficult to please. But understanding why they're the way they are can help you to address some of their needs. Melancholies have martyr syndrome. They tend to fall on a knife for a cause, a situation, a problem, a concern. If they get upset, they get wounded, um, they will stand up like a martyr and, want people to feel sorry for their situation. They tend to tell everybody what's going on. Well, the people close to them. If they've been wounded, they'll tell all the people around them to build support because they have a martyr syndrome. And melancholies tend to be pessimistic. Melancholies and phlegmatics see the glass as half empty. They see the worst before they see the best. So any situation that is presented, let's say you were given a project to do, you will first start to say, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Well, that's going to cost us money, or that. It'll be all the pessimistic, negative things that are being said before you say, oh, but you know what? Now that we've talked that through, I can see how that could really work. That is a melancholy personality. When I was renovating my bathroom, and I told you all of my friends are melancholies, and all of my girlfriends are the melancholies. And so I was um, renovating my bathroom, and I asked my melancholy friend. I said, I had this red um, sink. It was a marble sink and had a really unique spout on the faucet that kind of poured the water out like a waterfall. I mean, it sat like it was a beautiful bowl, like it was gorgeous. And I was in love. So, why did I ask my melancholy friends the question? I said to them, what do you think of this? At least one of them. What do you think of this? Well, I asked multiple. And some said, oh, don't you have grandkids? Is that practical? What if they drop something in it? Would it break? Is it easily scratched? Does it go with the decor in your house? Is it big enough? Is it tall enough? Is it? By the time they started giving me all the pessimistic views of this particular sink, I said, that's okay. I ended up buying something that was more practical, although I wanted something that was very artistic. But what can you do? And they had some good points, but still, they always look at it negatively before positively. All right, so let's talk about tips to overcome melancholy weaknesses. So, melancholies, as I said before, they're perfectionists, and they tend to set unrealistic goals for their lives and for other people. So, even if, let's say, the melancholy is at work and they are in a leadership role, sometimes the expectation of the employee is over the top, and they don't even see it that way, right? They just see it as it makes sense. And I guess I should have said this too. Melancholies are before their time, so they come up with ideas that most people, it take them a year to come up with the same idea. And it's funny because probably some of these inventions that have taken place, the melancholies was like, I thought about that when I was a teenager or when I was a child. So melancholies are forward thinkers. They are big picture thinkers. They're highly intelligent, and they're deep thinkers. And because of that, they're also perfectionists. And because they're perfectionists, they tend to set unrealistic goals for themselves and for others. Now, as a perfectionist, one of the tips that you could use to overcome that is to set realistic goals. And you might need to bounce that off on other people. So, in other words, have a brainstorming session, talk to your spouses or your mates, talk to your children, talk to whomever you need to try to bounce the ideas off on them so they can help you to set realistic goals. You have to avoid putting so much pressure on yourself to get things done, or to get everything done at once, or to make sure that everything is done to your expectations, your very high expectations. Okay. And if you're a believer, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I always like for my guests, my audience that are believers, to have a scripture that will help them to utilize it to help you to overcome your weaknesses as well. So the scripture I have is Proverbs 16:3. Commit the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. As as a woman of faith, I believe that um, it's better to surrender, and that's what commit means in this essence, to surrender your plans to my higher power, who I call God, or Jesus Christ. Submit your plans to Him, and then let Him establish your plans. Stop running off trying to do your own thing, because a lot of times it doesn't work out as well as you think. So let's talk about another tip. I like this at the bottom. You see the little the little graph at the bottom says, when is it good enough? Because you will constantly be changing and expecting people to be able to line up to whatever your expectations are. All right, let's talk about tips to overcoming melancholy weaknesses. Number two, you need to challenge your negative thoughts. Challenge your negative thoughts. That is not always easy, but if you find that you are thinking about or pondering negative thoughts, try to challenge them with a more balanced and realistic perspective. I always say that the worst thing that can happen to you in most cases is in your head. It's in your head. Because the worst usually does not happen. It does happen, but typically it does not. And so, whatever you build in your head, whatever you decide in your head is that worst situation, worst case scenario, that thing will, in your mind, be the thing you're thinking about. So, that's the negative thoughts. And then you have to ask yourself, is there any evidence to support that thought? Or are you just assuming the worst? Remember, most of it's in your head. We go out, we think, okay, be careful. I say to my husband every day when he goes to work, I said, be careful out there, or be safe out there. Over him, right? For him to be safe. But I know that there are people who worry when their family members leave the house or go somewhere or does something. They're worrying about that. And they're worrying about it because they've built in their head all the things that could potentially happen when they leave. I also remember when my daughter went off to school, I had some fear. I was thinking, have I taught her everything she needs to know? Is she completely prepared to do everything? I don't know. I was scared. And so melancholies tend to have negative thoughts and therefore will be afraid of almost anything that comes up. So in Philippians 4:8, it says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Think about those things. The good stuff, what's true, not what you made up in your head. What's honorable, what's noble. Think about what's right. What's the right thing, the moral thing? What's the pure thing to do? What's your pure intentions? Think about the things that are just beautiful and lovely and admirable. And anything that's worthy of praise. All right. Number 3, acknowledge your feelings. Remember, I said melancholies are moody personality styles, and they get offended very easily, and sometimes people do offend them, purposely, sometimes inadvertently, um, sometimes not at all. They're not actually offending them, but the person took it that way. So whatever it is, acknowledge your feelings. Like I was hurt, I was wounded, because when you acknowledge it, especially if you do it with the person, if you're able to do that with the person, when you do it with a person and acknowledge your feelings, um, then you validate them to yourself. You're able to say, okay, if I acknowledge them, I won't hold on to them forever. So this allows you to acknowledge and experience whatever emotions you're feeling, especially or including sad, sad or hurt ones. Because when you try to suppress how you feel or deny your feelings, it makes the issue bigger or stronger. And I like one of the things I tell in some of my training classes, I talk about this, is that feelings are unreliable. And I say they're unreliable. They're, for me, my friend, my doctor friend, and I used to talk about this. She said, feelings are an indicator. And I agree with that. Feelings are an indicator. But they're also unreliable because how I feel today, more than likely I won't feel tomorrow, the next day, 10 weeks from now, my feelings will change. And so you have to also embrace the fact that it's okay to feel sad or to have times when you're just feeling down. It's okay. Just acknowledge it, but don't stay there. Don't ponder, don't stay in that deep place where you feel wounded or hurt or broken. You lie there, that leads to depression. And a melancholy personality already struggles with falling into depressive states. And I'm not talking about clinical depression, I'm talking about situational depression, things that occur that makes you feel sad and hurt and wounded. All right. So for my believers, the scripture I chose for you is First Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. God cares for you. So if you feel anxious, if you feel sad, if you feel disappointed, if you feel wounded, then cast your cares on them. All right. One of my viewers is asking, can you repeat the scripture you spoke about in Proverbs? Let's see which one I did that. I'll go back. Yes. Proverbs 16:3 states, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Thank you, Brandy, for asking. So that is for the melancholy that is setting unrealistic goals for themselves. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. All right. Now, I wanted to throw in here a little bit about the careers that most melancholies choose, that falls in kind of the space of a melancholy. And I'll tell you a little bit about those. So melancholies tend to be accountants because they like numbers, and they like information, they like data, they like, and it's funny because I have a friend who's a melancholy. She's not an accountant. She's actually business professional. She's an HR professional. The next bullet. But anyway, um, we would, her and I worked in we had a governance meeting, and governance meetings were designed for us to extract data from our databases to determine why the customers were either happy or unhappy with the level of service we provided. And then we would give that feedback to all the various work groups, the business office, the installation teams, repair teams, whoever was involved. And we would get these numbers that she felt told a story. She would look at the numbers and she was like, what does it say? Like, what do you see when you look at these numbers? Numbers. I didn't see it. And she used to ask me that all the time. I was like, I see numbers. What do you see? And I really started saying that. Well, what do you see? and then go, oh, now I can see that. But she could see trends in the numbers, and the numbers really spoke to her. But yeah, it didn't do that for me because I'm a sanguine and she's a melancholy. So melancholies look at, you know, they're in the accounting field because that tells a story for them. And they like what the numbers say. And plus, melancholies can be rigid, and therefore um, they know that numbers don't lie. Numbers are numbers. The only way they can lie is if you change them or you shift them or you, as some people used to say, cook the books. But otherwise, if the data is the data won't lie, the numbers won't lie. And melancholy is like that because they can trust the information that comes from that. They also tend to be HR professionals. You're welcome, Brandy. They tend to be HR professionals because they like human capital. They like um, the training and development side of melancholy because it's about learning and training and sharing information. It's also about gathering information um, and putting it in a format that people can readily understand. But also, it's about hiring, and they like. Remember, they can be a bit on the rigid side, and because they're rigid, they like no nonsense jobs, right? They like black and white jobs, and HR is a black and white. Either you did it or you didn't. Either you're hired or you're fired. Um, Either this is a policy or it's not. So, you know, in HR, they do policy procedures, or trying to think of the name of the operating procedures. They do operating procedures, things like that. And so those are things that usually are black and white, and they enjoy that. But also, melancholies are creative. They're very creative. Normally, I'm melancholy. My daughter's a melancholy, and she's a singer. She writes poetry. She writes music. She can cook. She creates her own spices and sauces and recipes. Um, I have another, you know, I know other people in that are creative, and they are musicians, composers, choreographers, writers, authors, anything that falls in that creative span. Typically, melancholies are drawn to it. Artists, you know, all kinds of artists. And so that's some of the creative aspects of the melancholies because melancholies can be very creative. Also, melancholies can be politicians because remember, they care about the world at large. And because they care about people and they care about what's happening not only in their own communities, but in their state, in the United States, but outside of the United States, in the world, they tend to be politicians because they want to affect change. One of the politicians that I know of is Barack Obama. He's a melancholy personality style, highly intelligent, deep thinker, compassionate. Um, he is a great orator. He speaks extremely well, eloquently. That also speaks to his intelligence. So he's also that. The Let me see if I can change this a little bit. Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure I could see that. Melancholies are also lawyers because they love information. And what are law books? Nothing but information. My son-in-law is a lawyer, and he's highly intelligent. He's a deep thinker. He thinks about what's happening in a grander scale than most people do. Um, and he's a corporate lawyer. So he thinks, you know, he does contract law. So that's a lot of understanding legal jargon and writing legal jargon. So, and then they tend to be doctors, very specific, you know, they love to learn. So, what better profession to go into but to be a doctor? Because I think you go to school about 8 years. And so they tend to be doctors because, again, they care about people. They're, scientists. They tend to be scientists. There was something else that came to me that melancholies tend to be. But those are kind of the professions that melancholy personality tend to gravitate towards. Now, are those the only professions? No. There are definitely many more, and melancholies, depending on your secondary, you might want to do something even more different than that. All right. So, some people ask me, do I have all the personality traits of whatever that personality is? So, let me say that typically you have a primary and a secondary personality style. And each personality style has strengths, and each personality style have weaknesses. Do you have all the strengths and weaknesses of a personality? Absolutely not. Most people do not have all of the traits of a personality. So it's interesting when I teach these. Actually, somebody was looking at my podcast from last week, the one on the sanguine personality, and they were like, I have all of them except one. And I said, yeah, because you most people don't have all of them. Like, it could also be based on your secondary. So you may be strong in a certain area in your personality, your primary personality, but then you pick up something else in your secondary that supports it, right? Or maybe not support it, but maybe different from it. But you don't carry every personality style, and there are a number of reasons why you don't. One is we're all unique within our personality styles. And so I've had people ask me in training, well, doesn't that put people in a box? And melancholies are the ones who typically ask that question. And I say no, because you do the assessment, you're answering the questions. I'm not answering them. I'm not telling you how to answer them. If and they're not questions, they're words. They're sets of words that best describe you most of the time. You're choosing the words. I'm not choosing the words. And so you're not being put in a box. And the other reason why you're not be put in a box because you don't have all the personality traits. And every melancholy does not present the same to the world. Um, I remember a friend of mine, her and her husband both have the same personality style, but they present very differently. His choleric shows up more than hers at home, and her choleric probably shows up more at work. And so, and we just won't have them all because also it could be health reasons. If you have a um, debilitating illness or painful or chronic illness, sometimes you won't see some of the personality traits because they're pushed behind it. I'll give you an example of that. I'm a sanguine. I'm bubbly, I'm talkative, I'm outgoing. But when I am not feeling well, or I remember when I had this scar on my neck is from it's actually two scars. It's one here and it's one here. Excuse me. And those scars are from neck surgery. And the scars that I have um, when I had the surgery. I'm sorry, not the scars. The pain that I had when I had the surgery was so severe that I didn't want to talk to anybody. And when the phone would ring, I would just shake my head to my husband and go, no, or just wave like, no, don't, I can't. Because I was in so much pain, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to see anybody. I just wanted to take whatever I need to take for pain and sleep and rest and just not. So, especially people who are in chronic pain, it will change the way you present to people. Um, if you have a domineering spouse or mate, or you have domineering parents, that can shift your personality style. There's learned behavior. If you've seen something or something you had to do most of your life, that when you get on your own, you continue to do it because you learned that behavior. Sometimes that's the reason why you don't present the same. Also, I always say, I have a few people who ask me, what if I think I'm all for the personality styles? Some of those reasons I just gave you are reasons why people might feel that way. But also the phlegmatic personality style, which I'll do in a few weeks. That personality style mimics all the other personality styles, so they tend to be a phlegmatic. But those are some of the reasons why um, these you don't exhibit all the personality traits. Nobody does. I mean, I haven't met anybody yet that had all the traits. Now, I remember when one of my sisters did it, and she got the highest perfect numbers that I had ever seen. I mean, the highest numbers close to perfect that I had ever seen. And she came out to be choleric, melancholy, but her choleric was so high that if I remember correctly, it was like 36 out of 40, and the other four were melancholy. That's high numbers. That's high numbers, which means you operate a lot in your strength and your weaknesses. So it's really interesting. If you have any questions about the personalities, please post them in the chat, or you can send them to me through my website, beyond2llc.com. That's BEYONDTWOLLC.com. BEYONDTWOLLC.com. Beyond2llc.com. You can send me messages there. If you're interested in getting a personality assessment, you can order them on my website, and you will get a complimentary. Um, you'll get a complimentary consultation to go over your results. If you want to know more about the personalities, please go to my site again. There's information there. If you're looking to put a little personality in your next event, I do personality parties. I am a speaker and I speak on the personalities. I also tailor it to your events. I'm a personality coach. So I coach couples and individuals to help them to overcome some of their personality weaknesses. So those are some of the things that you can find, and you can again reach out to me via my website and um, and learn more about it. So before I go, I want to play um, a video of next week's show. So we're going to be talking about the powerful choleric next week. We're going to decode the choleric personality style. We're going to help you to unleash the power within. The powerful choleric is what I consider one of the most misunderstood personality styles. So if you are, or if you have someone that you live with, or somebody that you work with, or do ministry with, or whatever, and they are a born leader type of personality. They could be bossy and controlling. They always telling you what to do. To understand that personality style a little bit better, join me next Wednesday night when the show airs again at 7 p.m. live Eastern Standard Time, where this show is helping you build healthier, stronger relationships through the understanding of the personalities. I'm so happy that you were able to join me tonight. I hope you learned about the melancholy personality for the people that you love or work with, or do life with. I hope you learned a little bit about them so that you can understand their personality style and not change them, but change your approach to them, because you can't change anybody else. You can only change you. Thank you for joining me on Personality Speaking, where the tea is always hot. I'll see you next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good night, everybody.